So in this video, I'm comparing Apple Maps and Google Maps. I will compare everything from design to naming of the places and split the video into different parts so you can skip throughout the video to find the specific thing which interests you. And in the end of the video, I will reveal my personal choice, so stick around. Let's get into it. Starting with the design. First of all, Apple Maps liquid glass really stands out, but does it make the app better? I mean, yeah, those shiny buttons are very easy to interact with and everything kind of adapts to your clicks throughout the app. However, Google Maps is much more intuitive and more familiar. It feels like everything is on its place and I'm used to it. But the deal breaker in the design is Maps itself for me, because these apps are basically map apps. So it makes sense that maps play a huge role in usability, and viewing experience is much better in Apple Maps. I mean, you get more choices to view different parts of the city or places, and it even supports 3D, which is kind of fun to mess around with. However, that 3D view isn't supported for most cities, only for very big ones like New York. Also, if you prefer the satellite view, it is slightly better in Google Maps. The images are more high quality in Apple Maps, but Google Maps are more frequently updated, and that makes the satellite view more accurate, at least from my experience in researching the topic. Another thing I noticed is that Google Maps sometimes has problems when you switch between light and dark mode. For example, if you set the switch of light and dark mode to day and night, you can notice that in Google Maps you need to close the app sometimes to dark mode to disappear and light mode to appear. This is not a huge problem, but those tiny issues are much more common in Google's apps than in Apple's. The only problem I faced in Apple Maps is naming. For example, if English is your default language, but you open Polish cities, the naming doesn't always adapt to English, but stays Polish. In Google Maps, it just got both names, an English one and a Polish one. Overall, Apple Maps feels much more polished, get a bit more interesting viewing experience, and liquid glass, at least for me, is a bit more interesting to use than flat design of Google Maps, although I'm used to the second one a lot more. So I would say the design is better in Apple Maps. Next goes navigation, and here the deal breaker is how often the app is updated in terms of new locations and renaming of some restaurants, and just how well the area is known for this app. And while in large cities like New York you won't probably notice much difference, but in less known countries like Ukraine, Apple Maps isn't updated to new locations, therefore navigation is a pain. This is because Google Maps allows users to submit new naming if they notice that something is new, and in a couple of weeks it's there. But in Apple Maps, feedback from users is much more limited, and therefore navigation is much harder. Another thing is CarPlay, and while Google Maps is again more familiar to a lot of users, Apple Maps feels much more polished and more intuitive to use when you are in a car. But the deal breaker is really the location naming and updates of routes. This is where Google Maps shines, therefore it is clearly better here. Overall, I would give navigation to Google Maps because it is much more familiar to a lot of users and updates locations much more frequently. By the way, if you are finding this video useful, consider subscribing to my channel down below to not miss a new video. Thank you. The functionality of both apps is very wide. For example, in both you get information cards for different places, images, etc. However, here it really matters what you prefer, simplicity and ease of use, or comprehensive set of tools and more information. As you probably guessed, for simplicity, Apple Maps is much better. You can select a place and you will get high-quality images, quick access to the website, phone number, address, etc. In Google Maps it got more options like menu, reviews, and overall more information. But it is a pain to use and find what you need if you just need to copy an address quickly, for example. But Google Maps has much more support from people. It got reviews, photos from real people, and even location updates are based on the feedback from users. Therefore, information is more accurate and Google Maps is just supported in more countries. So I would say Google Maps is better in functionality, but with a slight advantage, because it really depends on your use case here. So the conclusion. My choice is still Google Maps, and it is slightly better than Apple Maps, but not at everything. If you prefer simplicity, stunning design and ease of use, go with Apple Maps. If you need more accurate locations and more navigation options, go with Google Maps. However, if you want to see a comparison between Apple Music and Spotify, there is a video over here in which I will show you exactly that. I will hopefully see you there. Thanks for watching this one.